Well, happy Mother's Day again, and I hope that you've had a chance to stop and think about home and mothers. One of the things I've really been challenged by in our study in G2 in our small groups has been the one on margins, because I think it's like I know these answers and they're not reality in my life yet, but it's in the margins that you live your life to the richest and the fullest, where you're not being demanded, that time is not being scripted for you at those moments. And you have time to think. You have time to be and be still. And in those times, sometimes right now that's me mowing. It's probably one of my most down times. And I get a chance to think. And I was thinking about home this week because of the message and because of what's going on in terms of mothers and Mother's Day. And when I thought of home as a kid, I had some difficulties. I mean, my mom battled depression a lot, especially later in my teen years. And there were some challenges there, but man, when I think about home, it was good. I had a good home. I was raised in just a good way, and like I said, not a fairy tale. There was ups and downs, but man, I valued my home. I loved being home, and I still appreciate that in my home as an adult. We lived in an inexpensive brick home on the edge of town, small college town, Commerce, Texas. About 8,000 people lived there, about another 8,000 students, and I lived close enough to the country, as I've said before, I could walk and fish and get out in the country, or I could be with all my kids. It seemed like all my friends lived in my two-street neighborhood. And when I stopped this week and thought about some of the memories, I remember things like playing basketball in my driveway. We had a huge crack that served as our three-point line. It also served to sprain my brother's ankle quite often. I don't know why I never sprained my ankle on that. It was like a 2-inch drop, and we played basketball on it. I just wouldn't let my kids do that, but we were in a different era then. Played wiffle ball there, pitched from the street and hit from the basketball goal, and caught innumerable. I was just reminded of this week as Griffin and Carson were out. It was really Griffin that was noticed the first fireflies of the season and how I used to chase those things. Sometimes my wiffle ball, now don't judge me, sometimes my wiffle ball playing turned into lightning bugs. I don't suggest it. I'm just saying that sometimes I see if I could hit one of those with, it's difficult. You try it to hit it with, especially I had a real wiffle ball bat, and a real wiffle ball bat's only this big around, and lightning bugs do not stay lit up. So you have to anticipate. And it really, I attribute that to some of my success in high school baseball. Just saying, you ought to try it. Don't knock it. We had pigeons in my backyard. My dad raised pigeons when he was a kid, and so one summer when we went to Columbus, Nebraska, we brought back about 3 pair of homing pigeons, and for that served to launch us into raising pigeons from, in fact, we had pigeons until we moved to Topeka. I brought the pigeons with us to Leonard, where we were, and didn't get rid of them until we moved here. I remember playing with Army men and Star Wars figures in the dirt pile in Texas, they're called bodark trees. It's the real name of the tree. You call them this generic thing of a hedge tree. That's description. That's not the name of the tree. It's a tree that belongs in a hedge. Sure, yes, but it's called a bodark tree, and or an Osage orange, and the kind with the big, you call them hedge apples. We call them horse apples. Some of them got this big, and you had to be careful on windy days to play under that tree because they would fall and hit you right on the head. They, too, were very fun to hit with bats. I did a lot of hitting things with bats, apparently, when I was a kid. Played there. My dad always grew a garden on the east side of our house, on the west side of our house. And this is one of my favorite memories as a child, and just that made me feel at home, was when he would grill out chicken on the back patio, and he would make new potatoes, the red potatoes, and boil those up. I could eat until I was literally nauseous. Barbecue chicken and new potatoes. I just still love that to this day. I spent a lot of spring and summer nights falling asleep, either in my front yard, where we oftentimes camped out. I was telling the boys that we have 3 acres, and so we set up a tent out on about the 2nd acre, you kind of feel like you're actually out in the country somewhere. And I told him this weekend, Carson was camping out, and I said, man, this is very different for me. I put my tent up in my front yard and right between the house and the street. And so that's where we got to do that. But we had a great time. Fell asleep listening to a lot of Texas Ranger baseball. Would have the window open and the little clock radio above my head. I loved it. The breeze blowing in, and I'd just listen. And sometimes I'd stay up way too late because it would be a close game or whatnot. But the majority of the memories I have of my home, and those are all home memories to me, are great. They brought feelings of safety, of comfort, familiarity. That's a big one to me. I lived in the same home from the time I was 3 to an adult. And it made me feel safe, happy. And the reason that I realize how important it was to me is because when home wasn't home, when things were not right at home, it was really, really painful. And that pointed to how important home was to me. And I think that we could relate there. And as we talk today about home, I'm talking more than just, as I hope you're picking up on, more than just the physical structure in which you live and dwell in. For me, and this is the definition I would use today, home is the central place. It's the center of where we live life and how we do life. And where the people who are closest to us, in proximity and most of the time in terms of family, should, not always, this is a should, but the should know us the best and love us the most. Home is not always that way. I understand that today. I want you to know that. If you're sitting here and saying that my home is nothing like what you're talking about. Now listen, I get that from a couple perspectives that I've pastored long enough to know what broken homes look like. I've also lived in somewhat of a broken home. I recall to you the best of my memories and will not recall the worst of them, but I understand when home is not right. I really do. I get that. I understand how it hurts. But I'm saying today, home is that central place from which we live. Whether it's good or bad, it's the place from which we launch into life, really on a daily basis. And it is that place where the people who are closest to us should know us the best and should love us the most. But it's not always that way, is it? So I want you to think for a minute, no matter where it takes you, uncomfortable or comfortable, warm or not so warm, but you just think of home. You could think of the one you live in now. You could think of the one you grew up in. You could think of grandma's home or whatnot. I want you to just call to mind, when I say home and I talk about it, that launching place, that place from which you live or lived life, and how would you finish that sentence? Home is what? What is home to you? What has it been? What would you hope for home to be? If it's not what you wish for it to be right now or what it has been in the past, what would you love to see happen to make your house, your dwelling place, a real home? What feelings come to mind or surface of your mind when you think of home? When I say, if I were to talk about going home, what feelings come to mind? Man, there are a lot of different ones in this room, no doubt. Everything from warm affection to, heck no, I don't ever want to go back there. So let's walk through some stuff together. Your home matters. The condition of your home matters. The condition of the home that you grew up in mattered. The atmosphere of it matters. And since your home is the central place from which you continue right now to launch your life on a day-to-day basis, and it's where you spend the most time with the people who should love you and know you the best, it's an incredibly important place and incredibly important for us to pay attention to. Now, what I want to suggest to you is the climate, the atmosphere, or the condition, however you want to put that, of your home may be a certain way today. That is, when we thought of home, you may have called to mind fights and arguments and maybe abuse, whether it be physical or verbal. And others of you might have called to mind those precious moments around a dinner table or sitting around the kitchen table talking or laughing at a TV show together, and it's a place of safety and security. It's all that it should be. What I'm telling you is that your experience, though it's varied, doesn't change how important the home is. And I would attest to you, and I would affirm again, that even when home is painful, I would suggest to you that's an indicator that it is important, because it is painful when it's not right. So the condition and the atmosphere of our home is going to be reflected in the way we live and experience life. It is. What's going on in your home is going to manifest itself. It's going to show up in how you do life, how you experience it. And it's actually going to be manifested in how people experience you. And I wanted to just show you some stuff, a little bit different approach to the message part of this, because what I wanted to do is just run through a few scriptures together that just highlight and point out how important, the importance that the Bible puts on home. And in the wide variety of ways it speaks about home, all in this context of it's very important. So all we're going to do without a lot of explanation is just kind of clip through some scriptures and just look at these briefly. I'll make a statement or two about each one. The first one I have is in Psalm 101, verse 2. Listen to these words. The psalmist says, I will try to walk a blameless path, but I need your help, speaking to God. Especially, he says, in my own home, where I long to act as I should. And home is the most important place to learn to live life with Jesus. Man, if we're not going to do life with Jesus at home, it's going to be difficult to do life with Jesus. It is. And in Proverbs 14:1, I really was tempted to read the one about, it's better to live in the corner of the attic than under the roof of a home with a contentious wife. I don't know anything about that, so I just would have to speak. I really don't. So some of you guys did not, you kind of nodded your head like this, and that was dangerous. You shouldn't do that. I wasn't quoting that one. This is Proverbs 14:1. It says, a wise woman builds her home. A wise woman, listen to those words, builds her home. But a foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. Man, building and fostering a home is one of the mother's greatest investment in the family ever. We're not talking about necessarily just being a homemaker. I'm not saying everybody has to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm just saying that the value that we place and the effort that we put forth in building and fostering home is important. The Bible certainly points it out. In fact, it says in Proverbs 27:8, listen to this. A man who strays from home is like a bird that falls out of a nest. And home is a central responsibility of every man, not your workplace, not your reputation, your home. Matthew 10:12, Jesus speaking to his disciples about their mission trip, and he says, when you enter the home, give it your blessing. Now think about this. Jesus sending out his disciples to spread the news of the kingdom that has come. And when the disciples were on this mission spreading that news about God's kingdom, it was the home they were to seek out. Home. And they were supposed to make that home base and bless it. To let their blessing rest upon it if it could. Isn't that interesting that that's where they were supposed to lodge from? In Luke chapter 8, in verses 38 through 40, there's a man who had been possessed by demons, and this is how the statement goes, or the story is ending. It says, the man from whom the demons had gone begged, that is, Jesus has cast them out. He begged Jesus that he might be with him, that he might go on from there with Jesus. But Jesus sent him away. That's interesting, isn't it? I want to go with you, Jesus. Jesus says, no. Return to your home and declare there how much God has done for you. Listen, and he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city where his home was, how much God had done for him. He launched his declaration of truth and transformation from the home. He didn't just pick up from where Jesus met him and leave his home behind. This man was sent back home. Jesus did that several occasions. When Jesus, it says in Luke 19, verse 5, when Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and he called him by name. Now, I don't know how about you, but I love to envision this. I really do. And every time I envision it, I see a knowing smile on Jesus' face as he says these words to Zacchaeus, a hated man, a despised man. He says, Zacchaeus, quick, come down, for I'm going to be a guest in your home today. Man, Jesus often initiated relationship with broken, sinful people far from his kingdom by going where? To their home. Right into the middle of their life. They didn't have time to clean up, straighten up, prepare a dinner. He said, I'm coming to your home today. We're going to start there. Now, I want you to know something, by the way, that is a theme that I see as I read about the home, that Jesus starts there with people. He's going to start in your home. He's not going to start in your job or your ministry at church or your ministry at church. He's going to start the launching pad for Jesus in terms of transformation, importance. It's your home. It really, truly is. Listen to Romans 16:5. When God's children are in need, you be the one to help them out, it says. And get into the habit of, I love that, get into the habit of inviting guests home for dinner in the Living Bible. Isn't that beautiful? Get into make it a regular pattern of life that you invite guests where? To church, to home, for dinner. If they need lodging for the night. I understand times have changed. Saw a guy on 29th Street, his thumb out, and he was there for 2 hours because I drove past him 3 times. No one's picking him up. I know times have changed. Like, you have to ask yourself, is it safe with my kids in the car to pick this guy up and take him somewhere? Is that logical? And at the same time, we're being urged to build relationships with people who are far from God and invite them into our home. I'm not saying go pick the guy up in front of Panera and bring him home for dinner. I'm saying get to know some people in your life and know that your home, this is the big part, know that your home is the center of your ministry to this world. Your home. It's important how it is. So I go back to this with you today. And I really want to connect with you on this, that I know home, it brings a lot of emotion to the surface. Well, anytime we talk about it, I heard a song with Bon Jovi sings with somebody, I forgot. You Can't Go Home. Who's he sing that with? Do you know? You don't listen to Bon Jovi? You uncultured youth music pastor? Come on. You can't go. He's going to go Google it. And the theme of the song is you can't go home, meaning once you leave and you go back, it's never the same kind of thing. But I'm going to tell you that you can go home. I really believe you can. I believe home should be that place that you can go back to and you find safe and secure. And you find yourself loved. But I know it's not that way. I know it's not that way for everybody, even in this room. And I don't want to sit here and say, but it should be, without offering any viable response to that, that your home may feel like a wreck today, and you just feel like a victim of that, and that you feel trapped in an environment there. And so I don't want to just say to you lightly or with this superficial tone that, hey, you go fix it because it's important. And I understand that some of you are just wrapped up in situations that are just painful. And I want you to know the reason, though, that it's so painful when things are not right at home is because home is innately important to us as people, and the way God has designed us and the way He's set us up, and the fact of everything that's going on in the home is so vitally important. So you're not a mess because home hurts so bad. That's not an indicator that you have failed. It's not an indicator that you've got something wrong with you and that it shouldn't be as important. It is important. It's very, very important. And I would offer to you the fact that if you're in a situation in your home that is hurting you desperately and you're quietly suffering, that you would take a G2 group leader or somebody you've gotten to know in your group or one of our pastors or somebody you trust, a deacon, an elder, and you would begin to share your pain with them. And see if there's a way we can come alongside of you, because home is important. It really, truly is. We can't fix everything, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm not even offering that. I'm saying we can come alongside of you in a situation where things are just maybe a mess. Maybe it's a single-parent home and mom's doing everything she can do to make ends meet, and you just wish you had more time. Maybe it's mom and dad are fighting a lot, or maybe it's dad's yells at you a lot, or maybe you just feel disconnected in a place where you feel like you should be connected. I understand that one. I really do. And I had a great dad and a great mom, and I love them both fiercely. But one of the things that was wrong in my home is that I couldn't go talk to my parents. I didn't feel like I could have. But I didn't have the kind of relationship where I felt like I could go say, Dad, I'm really struggling with this. In fact, I was thinking of a couple things that I'd gone through in high school in those times, and I think about a lot of things like that as Braden's about to fly the coop and go to K-State and become a Wildcat, and I'm all conflicted between the Huskers and the Wildcats, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And what color do you get when you get red and purple together? I don't know what that is. That's not a color. It kind of turns brown or something, doesn't it? I was thinking about the fact that, why didn't I go talk to... I could have gone and talked to Dad about that. Wonder why I didn't talk to Dad about that or Mom. And I just didn't feel like I could. I knew, in looking back, I would have known that they would have listened and cared. But I just didn't have that, and that hurt. That was kind of one of those things that did hurt. When something was wrong, I didn't really feel like I could turn there to find that. Fortunately, I didn't have a lot of those occasions that really demanded that. But because the home is vitally important, in those situations, that just illustrates it. When things are wrong and you just hurts there and nothing else seems right. When things weren't right at home, honestly, nothing else felt right in my house, in my life. But when it's just important to learn how we can do life. And I want to tell you something, how we can do life with God at home, that you can impact the atmosphere of your home. You can impact. I'm not saying hey, if you do two or three things that I'm going to tell you, go home and you'll have a perfect home. I'm not telling you that. But I want to challenge us with three things today before we move into a different segment of the message. First of all, I want you to acknowledge and embrace the importance of your home. I just want you to wrap your mind and your heart around that. Your home matters. And we have young parents here and new families. And boy, I hope that you never neglect the pursuit of a career over the condition of your home. There's nothing more important. And certainly not the corporate ladder or any ladder. So acknowledge and just embrace the fact home matters greatly. It's the launching pad that you do life from every day. So the investment that you put into that home is very, very well worth it, and is never going to fall short of your expectations there. So because that's that important, then I want to urge you to follow Jesus in your home first and foremost. When you think about following Jesus, I think it's so easy to start thinking about your church and this community of people. And this is a vital community of people for you to learn to do life with and to follow Jesus with. But it is not more important than the people that you live in your home with. It is so very important that Psalm 101 said earlier, I will try to walk a blameless path, but how I need your help, the scripture says. I'm reading a different translation now. Especially in my own home. Man, we need that. And I so identify with the psalmist right there that I need my Jesus help, especially in my own home, where we can let our guards down and we are the real deal there. And boy, I would tell you that the triumphs and the failures in the home can be like monumental. Like when you do things right as a parent and you follow in Jesus well there, it's good, it's rich. It's probably the most satisfying moments in my life as a parent. But man, when I don't follow Jesus well at my home, those are the lowest. That's the mountaintops and the valleys there. But what I'm learning, and the encouragement I would offer to you on this one, following Jesus in your home, because those people there, whether you get along with them or don't, whether you have fractured relations, they see you. They see you when you're not in a G2 group. They see you when you're not in a worship service. They see you when you're not doing share. They see you all through life. So they're going to see you trip and stumble and blow it. And sometimes you're going to do it on purpose. Sometimes you're just going to go, oops, I didn't do that well. Man, I think one of the most important things I've learned as a parent, as a husband, is just to immediately acknowledge it. And don't make excuses. That's my first instinct. And when I'm trying to follow Jesus at home, and I go, where did that come from? Where did that behavior erupt out of? Where did that response, where was that born? Well, who was that person? Instead of trying to excuse myself out of that, which is my first inclination, defend myself, give my reasons for acting that way, whatnot, whether it's my wife or my kids, just to sit down and say, man, I blew that one. Now, that's the best thing to do. That's also one of the harder things to do. I don't always get there quickly. It's hard to be vulnerable sometimes, even with people that are closest in your life. But I want to tell you something. I know this for a fact, that as we follow Jesus in the home is how we will follow Jesus in public, and we will never surpass that. We'll never follow Jesus better publicly than we have at home. Otherwise, it's just going to be a show. Here's the third thing. Let me review the first thing. Just acknowledge and embrace how important your home is to life. Certainly to following and knowing and following Jesus. Second, follow Jesus in your home first and foremost. Don't even worry about anything else hardly until you get that one. Focus there. Invest there. And thirdly, pray for the well-being of your home. Man, pray for the atmosphere of your home. Pray that there's joy there. Pray that there's peace. Pray that there's harmony in relationships. Pray that there's unity. Pray that forgiveness happens naturally and quickly. Pray that there's humility. Pray that there's time to connect. And pray for your home. I don't know that you could do anything greater for your home than to pray for it. To pray for the people that dwell there, for the atmosphere there. And I believe that, I know my wife prays relentlessly for our home. And whether you call it home or your family or whatnot, it's just so important. It's so important to ask God to prepare the way and cleanse the atmosphere and move in a way in your home. Man, don't just pray. How easy is it, especially if church leaders, you're a leader here, how easy is it for you to pray for the things going on here? And then back up and stop and ask yourself, are you praying for the stuff that's going on in your home? Are you praying about that? I mean, I know you want your ministries to go well. I know you want your impact to be great in this community. I know all that, but what about home? Are you skipping it? Are you overlooking it? Man, so important. I want you to do two things with me. I want you to, and I want somebody to share this. What is the best memory you have of home? Would somebody share like the richest, just one of the most precious things that you remember about? It could be the home you live in now, the home that you've made now. It could be the home you grew up in. Would somebody share just something that you just find really good, that just meant a lot to you? Dottie? He took a shot. That's good. That is good. Dottie, you've been an incredible mom. You really have. Kiddos are blessed. You have a daughter-in-law that I think has just totally adopted you as a mom, and you don't see much difference between mom and mother-in-law there, do you? It's good. Anybody else have a memory you would share? Yes, sir.
One of mine is at the holiday season when my whole family gets here, grandkids, great-grandkids and all that, and it reminds me to just praise and thank God for the family I have.
Amen. I share that with you. Some of the Christmases and Thanksgivings are some of the best memories I have of home and being together. It's good. Anybody else share? Yeah.
I remember back when I was, I think about 8 or so, it was during the stormy season. My family and I were watching Pirates of the Caribbean on cable, and I was really excited because I hadn't seen it. And all of a sudden, cable goes out, and we have a blackout, and then the tornado sirens start coming. So, me being a scared little kid, I thought I started freaking out, running around. My father was a paraplegic, and my mother with my dad into the into the hallway because we didn't have a basement, and she finally corralled me into the hallway too. We just sat there waiting for the sirens to stop,
Mm.
and my father looked at me because I was like, "What if we have a tornado? Mom and I can get sick, and then Dad can't."
Mm-hmm.
Love anything.
Man, I remember as you spoke at your mom's service that we did here, of all the times that your mom specifically you spoke of, just provided and protected and made you feel loved and that sense of home. Even though there was a lot going on in that relationship and in your life. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else? We have time for one more if somebody would share one. Let me go right there behind Betsy. Or to Betsy.
My dad was in the military, so he was gone a lot in my life. Some of my best memories are either being at the pier when the aircraft carrier came in, or at the hangar when the planes came in. Just anticipation of waiting for him.
Oh, yeah.
And my sisters and I, we saw him all done.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. Yeah. And just there's so much that goes on with that one word of home, and you spoke of things of safety, things of joy, of sentiment, of holidays, and places when you weren't even at home, but that's what home brought up, was seeing Dad come home. Yeah, that's really important. I just want to ask you to pay attention to it as we celebrate Mother's Day. It's not just the mother's responsibility, but today we would certainly remind you, moms, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're working and being a mom at home too, value that and put everything you've got into that. And it's an attitude that you adopt. When you adopt the attitude, it seems that everything else goes well. It's when you place the value of something other than the home above the home that things get out of kilter there. So, on this special day, our chosen focus, actually it's not chosen, it's chosen for us. That's always hard for me when a Sunday theme is chosen for us, but it is a good one, so we adopt it. Our focus is the home, but certainly on mothers. We're going to do something pretty special, I think, and we have several families here today with brand new additions to them, some not necessarily brand new. One's not brand new, but they're all relatively new to the family, and most of them, this is their first baby. And they've come today to dedicate not just the baby. I want you to pay close attention, not just dedicating a baby to the Lord. That is certainly something we want to do. But this is about dedicating a family to a process and a church being dedicated to that as well. So this isn't just, hey, God, we hope that you bless this baby for the rest of its life. That's rich, that's important, but it's even bigger than that. So let me introduce the families, and I think we have all these families here. We'll just see. And if I've missed somebody, I certainly didn't do it intentionally. We have Michael and Karen Veerling. Their son Jace is with them today. Would you raise your hands? I'm not going to make them stand up here just yet, but you can all stare at them. And they're a precious little baby. We have Jameson Courtney Bechter. Their son Jackson right up here. Jackson has awakened from his nap. I put him to sleep in G2 group, and then he wakes up near the end of the service here. So we have Joel and Kelsey back there. That is, those are brothers, of course. Not of course. You might not know that. I guess we could have two different Beckners here. Their precious little girl, Thea. Where is she's sleeping? We're not gonna. She's eating. All right. There's a 50-50 shot there in terms of what they're doing. All right. Very good. We have Jody and Christy Stanford. Their son Zane. Where's Zane? There he is. Hey, buddy. Hi. That's cute. You just won the I'm Precious Award right now. Very good. And then we have Tiffany and Joshua Smart. They have two they're dedicating today. Their son and daughter, Christian and Francesca. Are they both awake? No. Frankie's asleep. That's good. See? 50-50 chance. All right. So let me just share what we're doing when we talk about a dedication, all right? It's just that this is a public acknowledgement of an inward intention to raise a child in a way that they can know and follow Jesus. That's why we talked about the home first. It's because that's where that happens. It's not just here. If this is the only time we ever do it, it's just not going to happen, right? We can stand here and say, I dedicate this child to the Lord, but then if we don't live our lives in pursuit of Jesus in our homes, it's just not going to go well there. So it's very important to set the foundation. And it's a public declaration of this church's intent to be a spiritual family and to be a community to these families. It is so, so important that families, when they go into crisis or they go into celebration, that they have people that can share that with them. They don't have to go find it, that it happens, that because we're connected. So I really do urge you, church family, to make sure that you're invested in these families. Parenting, I think I read this week and I thought it was beautiful. It can be summed up by this phrase. It's where the sacred and the mundane collide. Where the sacred and the mundane collide. And here's the picture there, is that one minute you can be staring peacefully at your sleeping child. Is there anything more relaxing than to look into the face of a baby as they sleep contentedly, as their chest rises and falls with utter perfect rhythm and a beauty? I mean, it's sacred, right? And you walk out of that room with such peace and joy, and you just step beyond the threshold, and they scream. And they have a dirty diaper, and they need to be fed right about 5 minutes ago. And the mundane collides right there, right? The sacred and the mundane continue colliding throughout the course of your journey as parenthood. It's just the rhythm of it. And the task there is to see the sacred in the mundane, right? The task is to not let the mundane begin to define your attitude and your perspective toward being a parent. It's to not sigh and go, oh, I wanted to go sit down. But it is to return with joy, to change the diaper, to feed, and to give yourself away. There's nothing in the world that will reveal how selfish you are besides a baby. There's nothing. Being a spouse comes close, but parenting fully illuminates the selfish nature that we all get to live with until such time that we are responsible for another human being. And in that rhythm of life where the sacred and the mundane continue to collide, we continue to press forward and seeing the sacred in the mundane, that this child that you've been entrusted with needs you. Isn't that beautiful? They need you. They depend on you. God has entrusted them to you for that care in so many ways. Psalm 127 and verse 3 says, children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from Him. That is strong, strong language. So I won't care if you're a grandparent, parent, aunt, uncle, cousin, or if you're the child. I want you to hear this today, that every child that is born into our families is a gift. And that means this, that God thought of it, designed it, and offered it to you. That child was an intention. It wasn't just a natural biological process that happened randomly at your will. It was a thought-out, intentional gift. In fact, it strengthens the idea when it says, no, they're a gift, but they're a reward. That is out of the goodness of God's heart that He rewards us, that He blesses us and gives us this incredible responsibility and this incredible joy of parenting. So the children that you hold today, or the children that you have held, are living proof every single day of just how deeply God loves you and how precious life really is and how willing God is to pour out blessing upon blessing upon blessing in our lives. And I am so thankful, and I cannot wait to preach this coming fall, because we're going to go through this in the book Faithful Presence. There's a chapter that has identified, and I never thought of this. This is my own spiritual immaturity. Never thought of the practice of being with children as a spiritual discipline. Man, wait, if you haven't, just wait until you get into this. It is beautiful. I never thought of this as a spiritual discipline until I read this chapter, and I'm overwhelmed by it. It is impacting me as a dad. It really has been. I just read it Friday, okay? So I'm not like 3 months into this, or Thursday. It is just, I'm just touched by it. It is beautiful. So I want to say this, and then we're going to move towards the dedication. But parents, you have 3 primary responsibilities as the parent of this child. And I don't expect you to remember this. I'll give you the manuscript, okay, if you want to read these things again. But they're not long. First, right, provide for and protect that child. We have that. We kind of get that. Almost comes naturally. We have the instinct to do that. It's very, very rewarding to do that. It's also very, very painful. I had an experience when I was a kid. My best friend, well, he's my best friend at the time. Best friends change when you're 7 or 8 a lot. And we had something called a crawdad hole. Has anybody ever heard of a crawdad? It's a crawdad hole. Okay, I don't have to. It's a puddle with crawdads in it. I was leaning over our favorite crawdad hole when Bobby Eilers came behind me, and he pushed me right into that crawdad hole. It was only 1.5 feet deep, but it was the whole idea of the thing, right? God, he pushed me in the crawdad hole. First of all, he messed up the crawdad fishing for a good 2 or 3 hours. Second of all, that was kind of mean. And I expected my dad to do something about that, so I marched home and said, in my tearful, broken, quivering voice, "Dad, Bobby pushed me into the crawdad hole." And my dad laughed. That hurt my heart. I wanted my dad to protect me from vicious Bobby Eilers who pushed me into the crawdad hole. Mike, did you push Connor into a crawdad hole? Is that what's going on over there? Do we need to talk? Are you sure? Okay. It is a parental responsibility, but we have to be wise and know when to strengthen our kids. My dad was protecting in a different way, and he did it well. I didn't need him to go chew Bobby out. I'm glad he didn't, quite honestly. I wouldn't have near as good a story. Your child needs you to protect them, but he also, you know what else? Your child needs you to enjoy them. Have you stopped and realized that your child needs to know you enjoy them? And you cannot do that at breakneck speed. I've really been thankful for Griffin of late because he slows me down. He slows me down, and I have to see the world through his eyes, and it's a whole different perspective. I laugh so many times at the things that he might say from the back seat of my truck on the way to school. And just the lens, and I stop and think, that's how he's seeing the world. That's how it's his life. And what a blessing. Enjoy them and tell your kids you enjoy them. Hug them and say, man, I like you and I love you and I enjoy spending time with them. And thirdly, show them Jesus. Don't just tell them. Please show them Jesus in action. And one of the things I think is the most important that I'm probably just now learning as a 47-year-old dad is bending down and hugging your kids is probably one of the best ways you're going to show them Jesus. Family devotions are rich and they're good. They're probably very, very important, but they're not nearly as important as you showing your kids Jesus in your response to difficulty. You showing your kids Jesus in the value you place on praying with them before bedtime. Showing your kids Jesus in the attitudes that you keep and the priorities that you hold. If you just tell them and divorce your words from your actions and your attitudes through life, they will not get Jesus very well. So here's what we're going to do. In just a moment, I'm going to have the parents come up in just a moment. And we're going to offer a challenge to each to each family. We'll do that corporately and together, and we'll offer a challenge to the church. I want to prepare us. I want to kind of coach us through something. Our children are not going to be perfectly well behaved up here, right? And never, I mean, some might be by accident. They will be wiggly, and they may be loud, and I may have to speak louder. But don't let that create any discomfort. That should be part of the celebration because they're children, right? They're going to be in a position that they don't particularly want to be in. That is, being made to feel like they got to be still and quiet. That's not their nature. So we're all going to agree now that it's okay. However they behave, I'm not worried about it. If you've seen me preach and you've heard me preach, I have parents almost weekly say, I am so sorry he was so or she was so noisy. I never heard them. I promise. I don't know what that means or how to interpret it, but I don't hear children. They don't distract me while I'm preaching. So in just a moment, as the parents come up, in just a minute, we're going to celebrate just the fact that we get to be with kids today. The fact that God's blessed. And hasn't God blessed our church family with lots of little babies lately? Amen. AJ says amen. All right. So let me read the scripture, and after I read the scripture, I'll invite our families to come forward. Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 through 6 speaks well to all of what we've said this morning when it says this. It says, listen, Israel, we could put ourselves in this place. We don't replace Israel, but certainly the truth for the church still exists. The Lord is our God. The Lord is one. You must love the Lord your God with your whole mind, with your whole being, and all of your strength. These words I am commanding you today must be kept in mind. And you must teach them to your children and speak of them when? As you sit in your house, and as you walk along the road, and as you lie down, and as you get up. Jesus should be spoken of and demonstrated throughout every venue that we do life with our kids. So I'm going to invite our families today to come forward. If you are here and celebrating this precious gift of a child, we invite you to come. If you just come and begin, just kind of spread yourself out along the front. All right. Good deal. All right. There we go. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Let me just come down there so you can, everybody can. There you go. Beautiful. What's that? We're going to do a child's... No, we're not going to do that. All right. Isn't this beautiful? Church, haven't we been blessed? Yeah. You've been waving at me too long. There we go. All right, Mom and Dad, as you provide for, as you protect this precious child, and as you enjoy them and love them deeply, and make sure that you're regularly embedding and showing the gospel of Jesus and not just speaking of it alone into the very heart and soul of these children, allowing it to become a part of your being and theirs. And as you do that, you're going to put Jesus on display. And that is the goal of a parent. And that's certainly the intention of today as we teach them, not merely with family devotion, but as they watch your life, as they hear your words and express your attitudes and prioritize your day. You will impart the gospel to them in your conversations about school, in your probing conversations about friends, about heartaches and about pain, as well as joy and victories. Read God's precious word to them regularly and often. Explain it to them in your understanding in a way that they get it and they carry it with them. And they will. Pray for them regularly and often, but most of all and beyond, above all of these, follow Jesus authentically yourself. High above our failures are the victories that God gives us as parents. And they overshadow, overwhelm, and redeem all things. They really do. God does work these things for good. And as you become more and more like Jesus through all of this, the gospel of his kingdom will be inevitably communicated clearly and authentically to your children. So, in unison, parents, today I would ask you if you would here and now publicly declare this to be your intention and your purpose from this day forward with your children. If you would you say, we do? Amen. Church, the saying is that it takes a village to raise a child, and that has some truth, but today we would say it really does take a church. It's not absolutely essential, but man, the richness that can come from a church family, loving on and sharing, and I don't want to stand in front, so let me stand up here. Loving on and sharing life with these parents, I think is underestimated. And at this point in these families' lives, you are their community of faith. You are their spiritual family. And our entire focus as a church is to help each other and others who are not yet here even to learn to do life with God in community. The in community part is powerful. It's very, very important to belong and know. And these families are a gift to us. They have been given to us. We have been given a responsibility and a blessing, obviously. And we want to love them well. And we also have this responsibility and privilege to know them, to literally get to know them. And we can't love them well if we don't learn to know them. So let's make time to do that. Through all the seasons of their life, celebrating their joys, entering into their sorrows right alongside of them, we have this awesome role of putting on display what life together with God in God's kingdom really looks like. So let's commit ourselves today, church, to be a people of great grace and unrelenting love and redemptive in all our words and actions, offering these families the very highest and the very best experience of life in God's family today. So, church, will you here and now publicly declare this to be your intention and your purpose as long as God entrusts these families to our care? If you would you say, we do? We do. Amen. So, I'm going to have Sarah come now, and Debbie are going to present the children and their families with a gift. And after the conclusion, I just want to pray for each one of these children, and we'll let that be our conclusion today. There you go. It's got my name on it. Thank you. I want to first say thank you to these families because your willingness to let us be your spiritual family is a huge gift. And you bring life and joy to this church family. You and your families are a blessing. Church, let's wrap our arms around them and love them well. And let me ask God to bless each one of those kiddos today. Father, my deep, deep desire is that these children would grow to love and know Jesus very early in their lives. That they would never really be able to remember a time when they didn't feel the immense, awe-inspiring love of Jesus filling their home and their lives. And I thank you for parents who are going to show them that. I thank you for a church family that's willing to support that. And I ask that you would help them to never, ever settle for knowing about Jesus, but to have from a very early age an understanding that they can literally become like him. So invade their homes, give them grace upon grace to live and to love by. And we thank you for the privilege of being this spiritual family and for these families that stand before us. It is in the great name of Jesus I pray. Amen. Thank you.